Hello, friends. Producer Ashley here. Welcome to part two of our Raising Spirits Season 2 premiere. We are jumping right back into Nate's recap of his class visit to Las Vegas. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
So, kind of in between Aria and Circa is one of the other properties you visited, the Cosmopolitan, the Cosmo, if you're nasty. Also in that city center kind of complex there with Aria, right adjacent to it. In that big clusterfuck of properties that are all in the middle of the strip there. They've got a lot of interesting marketing that they put out. They've always tried to be edgy, um, including when they were victims of the Vidara death laser. If anybody remembers that. You remember that?
Elaborate.
So
No.
the property, the hotel, the Vidara, it's in the city center.
Mm-hmm.
You would have seen it. So when they built it, the glass that they used on the facade of it, a certain time of day, the sun came in and the reflection focused and
Magnified.
it melted fake plants on the Cosmopolitan pool deck that kind of overlooks the strip. So they
Okay.
called it the Vidara death laser. Shout out to Sabrina because she worked and or lived right around there and got to see it firsthand when she was out in Vegas. So Cosmo, how was your experience there?
I thought that was some kind of fucking sci-fi movie you watched or something. I don't know, or some threat on humanity that I missed, but none like Armageddon.
Some thread on humanity.
Mm.
That's what we're here to share, folks.
You know what? You
The
know what you
tiny little
missed?
stories about casinos, but also threads on humanity.
You know what you missed? Threat, not thread.
I
I
heard
thought you
thread.
were. I thought you were cooking in the sun all day, but clearly you've been putting down that whiskey all day.
It's both. The sun
Ah.
out here is different, man. It will get you.
I see that. Lobster will.
Woo.
So, and we no, what I was actually gonna say was the threats on humanity. But I think that the Cosmopolitan, the chandelier when you walk in, all right, they still have some old school games, and they got a pretty dope barbershop right when you walk in, so you can get your cut right there. And then you can go behind the scenes to the speakeasy that's located behind it. And then you got your Starbucks on the other side, but there's this massive chandelier. And what I thought was unique too was that sports books down there, probably because they've existed so long. When Ohio became legal with sports betting a few years ago, I think we kind of overdid it. We crushed it when it comes to sports books and what they look like and the facilities themselves. Because I go back to Vegas and I'm thinking like, this is your sports book, and I think to
Some wood
property
veneer carols and just everybody looking at some old
absolutely.
LCD
And
TVs
you
up
could
there.
changing of the lights based on the team that's playing. So the Cavs are playing, it's orange and red, all the LEDs around. I feel like I'm driving in a Mercedes or a Tesla, and you change the colors based on your fucking mood or something. But yeah, this was pretty cool out there. There obviously their sportsbook wasn't the highlight of the property by any means. But that you welcomed by this giant multiple story glass chandelier. And have you ever ate at Egg Slut?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, they got one right up in there on
that's
the
good food right
second
there.
floor.
That's good on the morning after.
Absolutely. And so, we got a quick tour of the gaming facility, and again, I think that I don't want to say the emphasis on this, but a common thread to the tours was that it wasn't just about gaming, right? Because again, it's about all the different pieces to this puzzle of Las Vegas and into a resort. That gaming is just one factor. And back in the day, obviously, again, we thought about the revenue being driven by slots and tables, and to now that the square footage, when you look at these properties, especially down there, even versus Ohio, um the amount of other things that they have on property is truly kind of remarkable. And again, it's to encapsulate all the different markets that come to visit families, and people from all these different demographics and across the world, not just the country. So we developed a relationship with a gentleman who actually had went to college out in I think believe Penn State, and worked at one of the properties out in Pennsylvania, and reached out a few years ago and welcomed us. And so we've been in there for the past few years, and took us up to the high limits, and walking ins and outs of the private rooms. So again, this common theme of seeing this bottle of Louis sitting right there in these private rooms for gaming, and I'm just it just keeps hitting me. It's the marketing of it, and that crystal bottle, and I'm just thinking, man, what would we like to just go
You
grab
get
one of those?
$500 for an empty bottle in a box.
Again, it just kept pinging me in the head, pinging me in the head, pinging me in the head, and you can see where this is leading. So, but we were able to go up to one of their premium suites, nice, beautiful corner balcony, so we could kind of walk around the balcony, see the whole strip, see the fountains at the Bellagio down below, Paris across the way. And, I mean, again, the students' reactions and in awes, and how many phones came out. I'm amazed that one didn't fall off of the balcony, and drop 40 stories, 50 stories. But that property, again, being one of the newer ones, similar to Aria, and a little bit earlier than Circa, you can definitely tell these newer properties versus some of the legacy properties that are out there. And again, each one's so beautiful and unique in its own way, that it can appeal to the same person in a different way, regardless of what your interests are, and how you traditionally choose to go stay at a hotel, or at a resort. Each one has something for you, which is awesome. So the Cosmo was definitely one of those newer, shinier, toys that we've got to go tour. And we'll probably continue to do that. Knock on wood. But then you get to one similar to kind of Caesars in the Palms. That's from a location standpoint, it's off the strip. You look
That
to
was
it.
the place 20 years ago. That was the hottest place in town for a while.
So I'll tell you something about experience, and I walked in there last year, and we went up to one of the suites, and I asked the guy, I said, "Hey man, wasn't this the place on like the MTV Video Music Awards back in like 2000?" And I wasn't trying to age myself, but I was trying to think, like, I was in college and I was here on this couch drinking this liquor, with these people. Oh yeah, and T-Pain was singing out on the balcony with Kanye West, and "This is the Good Life." And I remember they must have had a drone or a helicopter or something flying in, zooming in with the camera, and they're singing out on the balcony. And I said, "Wasn't this the place?" And I remember the Palms, neon lights in the
Mhm.
background, and you know, and I said that downstairs. And so then we go to tour after the gaming. The gaming's always kind of comes second to every tour, with these operators. And so we went up to these suites, and we walk out, and I'm like, this is one of these hot tub suites that protrude out from the property and look over the strip. And I'm walking out there, and all of a sudden the music comes, "The Good Life" by Kanye West. And I look back, and the guy's sitting there. He's got his iPad, and he put the song on from the room, and it's on all the speakers. All the students are back in, and they have no idea, because this is probably 20 years ago, and they didn't even know this probably song existed besides hearing it on the radio. But I'm thinking back visually to the T-Pain and Kanye West experience, from the MTV Video Music Awards, and I'm walking up there, and all of a sudden it's playing, and I walk back in, and I'm like, "You just did that, really?" And he's just like, "Hey man, with every guest, it's all about the experience." And that hit close to home with me, because I'm like, man, they treating us as guests as we're visiting this property, but treating us like they treat their VIP members, and
That's a
that's the
great moment.
mentality that you have to have. I literally, and this suite was off limits because they were doing renovations. I think interior and exterior, and so the hot tub was drained. But I'm walking out, kind of pulling my jacket up, going to walk and look over the strip, and yeah, there's the windows are dirty because nobody's been in there for a couple weeks, and the hot tub's empty. But that feeling right there, and I was just like, it brought me back and nostalgic, and it was like, man, this is why they do what they do, and this is why they're great at what they do. And so all the different suites up there, they have a bowling room right, a bowling alley right in one of the suites. You know, they got bunk beds. It looked like a place I'd want to do a fantasy football draft. Shout out to the professor. He should put that on the books one of these years. We need to do a
Kamish.
we need to do a fantasy football draft out there at one of these palm suites, because I mean they had bunk beds just lined up in this, padded, and it's just, again, immaculate. And then there's the party bowling alley and bar and everything in these suites. And then we got to this Travis Scott suite, I believe it was, where there's a full basketball court. And then there's the Murphy beds that come off of the walls of the basketball court and lay down on the court, essentially. And I'm thinking, man, again, speakeasies inside of the suites themselves, staircases, obviously poles for whatever reason. I'm sure firemen or something. And I look at this and I'm like, man, I'm living a different life now that I'm in Ohio. Like, I miss this feel, and they live it every single fucking day. And again, they focus on every single guest, and that type of stuff is awesome for me to see, and again, the look on these students' eyes where you would never have seen it or believed it if you heard about it in your life, and they're walking through it. I got a gal that's in a bowling league that went through a couple balls down the lane, and that stuff is, for me, it's what I live for. That's the passion, and seeing those moments. The students are my customers now. They're my clients now, and seeing those moments are awesome for me. So, shout out to the Palms. We went down to checked out their pool deck, checked out their stage, the Pearl, which has housed so many awesome events, and
Seriously.
just the walls and walls of events, and their security team is amazing. Shout out to Jason and Mike. Those guys, they live and breathe, for customers' experience and for their roles, and they're great at it. They're not just, what you would you think in a security officer or guard or manager, or director. They're the perfect fit for what they're doing. And this property itself is older, but again, still so amazing when you go inside, and you just hear the differential in sound when you walk, from outside of the Pearl to inside of the Pearl, and you hear your voice. Like, I probably need whatever walls or anything that they have if they ever demo that place, in this room right here, that you'd hear me so more crisp and clear, versus now. And so they have this light on stage, and I didn't realize it until a few years ago when they explained it, that like it's always on, even at night, even when they're gone. Basically the show goes on, is what it is and what it stands for. And so we were able to get a couple pictures right on stage with them, and so that was the Palms itself was a pretty crazy property to tour. And again, you look at it and it looks a little older and it's farther away from the Strip, but it's absolutely worth the trip, and I recommend that place to everyone just as much as I would, any of the other new properties.
Yeah, it is in kind of a funky spot, but I don't think they get enough credit for probably being the pioneer in what Vegas became. It was the first one to, break away from the family vibe, the Excalibur, Luxor, New York, kind of, that whole big family push that came in the 90s, late 80s and the 90s. You still had some of those old school joints then. You had, the Desert Inn and things like that. You had all these new joints popping up that were for the families. And that was like the dominant, vibe for a while. That's where the money came from. You're going to pull the families, you got to put the kids in the big arcade. Dad's going to go play $10 blackjack and you'll make your money. And the Palms came in and they kind of flipped it on its ear. They opened up the Playboy Casino for a while up on the top deck there. They started catering things. I know they were owned by, are they still owned by the Maloofs, or did they sell that? Do you know?
That name sounds familiar, but I can't
They
confirm.
owned sports teams and things like that. They were a couple kooky brothers. I remember there was some show on the management of that, and they were very outspoken gentlemen in the market. But they really doubled down on a lot of the things that the industry is built around now. That level of specific hospitality, the adult themed or edge to things. Some of that room stuff. Everybody else was still doing funny stuff. Like just across the street, the Rio was still doing Masquerade in the Sky, and you had the beverage servers stopping. You ordered a beer, you're gonna wait 20 minutes because they're doing a dance number, and then these guys were opening up, and doing their thing. And it was kind of a revelation for what a lot of things are built around now. The Cosmo, I think you wouldn't have the Cosmopolitan really without having had the Palms first. So I don't think they get enough credit for them.
Yeah, they definitely paved the way. It's again, that property, it stands tall out there, and it's a little bit, it looks like that's the most baffling thing is looking, and it's like, I could probably walk there in like 5 minutes, and it's
No,
like a 15-minute drive.
You
You
can't
know?
walk anywhere, man. Everything looks close because it's so goddamn big. I made my mom walk the whole strip once, and she about killed me. That's a
You probably
incredibly
about killed
long.
her.
That is true. That is true. I took years off her life, at least.
Yeah, and actually too, they had traditionally they let us tour the studio, so they have a full studio up there, and seeing those walls with all the signatures and stuff. I probably have pictures from last year. Shout out to Cleveland, Bone Thugs and Harmony was out there, MGK, and there's all these signatures on the walls of people and artists who have used their studio out there.
Ashley will put them up on the old Instagram there.
There it is. Put it right there. Put it right there. Swap
Oh,
out
yeah.
for Will's
this
lobster
here?
face. Swap out for Will's lobster face. But yeah, they have somebody that's been in there working on an album, so they couldn't give us a show of it. But looking forward to her release of what she comes up with next. So that was pretty cool.
No, look at you keeping the NDA alive. Then it wasn't just casinos that you stopped by. I know you saw a show. You went on the world's least exciting Ferris wheel, and also
whoa.
No, that's stupid. That was a dumb waste of money.
All right,
and
we're gonna
everyone
argue.
knows it.
We're gonna argue on this. I don't worry about the money that was spent into it doing it because I didn't have to spend it. But what I did get to experience was an amazing one. So let me tell you about this, because we're gonna jump to the other facility that we toured, but because Will wanted to get a jab in there because he's probably got a personal vendetta because they didn't let him on or something because he was too lobster faced.
I've been on it, and then I immediately regretted it.
Yeah, he got kicked off, is what he's saying. So
you can't get kicked off.
This
without a parachute.
The high roller, kind of down near the link, and it right in the center of the strip. It's kind of like the London Eye, if you will, that they put up for the games years ago. But it's ultimately a giant Ferris wheel that kind of moves very slowly. Takes, I don't know, half hour to go around.
Too long.
But this fucking guy. This is why we can't work together. So we can fit the whole class in one pod, right? 30 students, 2 TAs and a couple professors, right? And so we're all in there. We're having a great time. The hospitality that they showed us last year versus this year, they stepped it up, right? And I think that's what we all try to do in the service industry is always set the bar higher. And so, last year we got on, we had our bartender, they reel a bar in there for us. We got our bartender in there. We're all having a great time. And, 30 some minutes, we're at the peak. We're looking at the strip at nighttime. We're seeing the Sphere, all the different advertisements that they got on the Sphere and enjoying ourselves. And yeah, the ride seems too short when you're on it, when you enjoyed it. Clearly, either Will wasn't with good company or he did something wrong up there. Maybe he shat his pants or something and he needed to get off. I don't know what it was, but clearly he's got an issue with this place. But the ride itself,
Nate wants to be invited back. So kudos to the gentleman.
Ride was great. And again, the experience from our students was I mean, this was one of the highlights. At nighttime, looking down the strip, seeing all these lights, seeing the whole strip at a higher point than you can at any casino, besides renting one of those helicopters. And we know what happens when you get in a helicopter. You know, ask the guy and his family in New York what happened. It's not good. So this is safe. We're on this wheel. And we go around slowly, as we'll put it, which is comfortable for some of us. And we're able to drink the whole time and enjoy ourselves. But no, truly, all jokes aside, it was a great experience. They threw up the Kent State banner on the inner sides of all of their, their facility, and on their digital marketing and everything. And, all of a sudden the blue and golden flashes hit up and the students were in awe. And again, it was probably about the experience more than it was the ride itself. So I'll give Will, kind of a little bit of, his platform and saying he didn't care for it. That's fine. But I think it was about the experience in total it was a highlight for one of our trips, or for our trip the past 2 years, that the students got to experience. So.
All right, Raiders.
Just win, baby. That's it. So I didn't get to meet Al Davis, and Snoop wasn't there, and Charles Woodson wasn't promoting his wine, so I was pretty sad. But what I did get to see was an amazing facility that doesn't just hold NFL events, holds a lot of entertainment events. And so at the time, they had kind of almost what looked like like an amusement park or circus on the field, set up that probably was blow up inflatables and it looked like an obstacle course almost. But I'm sure it was just for some private person who rented it out for their company, and held some form of culture building event there. But you can do that, and so. That facility being one of the newest and just having hosted the Super Bowl a few years ago, again, was at the top of their game. And so I'm used to one of the historic stadiums being Lambeau Field, which is amazing in itself. And again, speaks to the fact, just like these casinos, that you can go to one place that does the same thing that's, 100 years old, and you can go to another place that's brand new, and you're in awe at both of them. And so, similar to the Arizona Cardinals Stadium, they wheel their grass right outside, so it sits there and gets that all the vitamin D you want. And then they wheel it back in when it comes to game days or to their events that they need the actual grass as opposed to the artificial turf. But just their facility in general, we toured the locker room, all their staff, incredibly knowledgeable, a lot of young professionals that have been kind of working their way up over these past few years since they've opened. And so it was more inspiring than anything just to run into and run across a handful of individuals that came and spoke to our group and class that probably, 3-4 years ago, they were in, the student shoes, and they were jumping into roles at Allegiant Stadium and continuing to work their way up and loving the environment that they were working in. So, again, the football team is what it is. Raiders, they at least got a football team in Vegas right now and somebody to support. But that facility in itself we felt we wanted to give another touch to the tour, and to our trip to Vegas. I still spoke to hospitality to an extent, or in tourism, but also at the same time, a lot of our students, and especially our guys, we're excited to get over there and check out a football stadium. So similar to the Palms, it looks like it's only a couple minutes away, and it's like a 20-minute Uber ride, And the one thing I noticed, every Uber I got into in Vegas has that tire and explanation symbol on their dashboard lit up. And I'm everyone I'm asking, I'm like, yo, when was the last time you got new tires? When did you get a tire change? And, that just comes on. I get shit when you drive this much, I guess, man, but I want to feel safe. But that facility is something.
That's an incredible change for the city too, because it wasn't that long ago that there was the closest thing you had to sports in Las Vegas was the Las Vegas 51s, the AAA affiliate of the Dodgers back then. And now next year, the year after, you're gonna have it's a 3 sport city. Like that's incredible to grow that much in that segment. So you're gonna have a shit ton of opportunities for sports management majors, hospitality folks. You know, you run the gamut. Probably almost every job except for slot tech and dealer that you would in a casino, you're gonna have in these 3 facilities that like you said aren't just running during the season. It's not just 8 games. It's all these other things, concerts, private rentals throughout the off season, all the work that goes into the maintenance of these things. When I went and saw that Braves game the other day, just seeing the grounds crew in between the end of the game and the fireworks display they put on, you had 25 guys out there. One had a push mower. Imagine how big the outfield is, and he's just mowing these little spots that obviously somebody pointed out, saying, "Oh, that needs some tending." The amount of care that goes into these things, like you said, with the pushing the grass in and out, that's gotta adds a little bit of nuance to it. And the hockey stadium too, that thing does a ton of different things, uh, and is in a much more constricted area, being right up against uh, Park MGM
Shout
in
out to
that
the
little
Knights.
district. Woo. Yeah, so much has changed. It's got to be. I understand why all these properties and all these entities in Vegas. You're only bringing 30 kids, 30 young adults, not kids, but and they go all out to show off what they've got because they need that top tier talent that you're producing over at Kent. They need that because it's growing exponentially in areas that you Vegas has hospitality workers. They do. Um, but it's a lot of, your grinders and your old school guys and it's a lot of, generational casino workers. For some of these new things, the one thing we do have in Northeast Ohio is sports. People understand, the mindset of sports, how to market sports. They have the exposure to it. Vegas never did. They never did. So you're going to have to import some of that talent until people can work their way up through the ranks and kind of learn the ropes and get there. And I know UNLV has a great hospitality school, but I'm willing to wager their sports management program was not prepared for that level of growth that fast. So kudos to old Nathan Geeson for exposing those kids, which is the reverse of what normally happens, uh, to some great opportunities within an industry that really did us right for many, many years. My dog just fell.
We
That's what that
saw him
sound
on the
was.
counter in the background. It was good.
So that was thanks for that, Ellie. So yeah, pour one up to Nate.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll take that myself. Last thing I'll say to the overall trip was that, again, the hospitality and generosity of everyone and their time, was amazing. And, we actually ate at a restaurant called Off the Strip, right near the link, and they've hosted us the past couple of years, and their food and beverage director came and spoke to the class and kind of talked to us about the ins and outs that they go through. And again, you think of Vegas, but there's not really a day off, so it's kind of everything on steroids, that we're used to. And so hearing it straight from the horse's mouth, and they're able to give perspective to everything that they come across to these students is great. And as I always say too, you dissect the casino, there's majors of all different colleges in that could be tucked away somewhere in that casino. We started off talking about that, and we can end talking about that. But a lot of these students don't envision themselves potentially in a casino, but after they go on this tour and they take this class, and after 15 weeks and a trip to Vegas and 4 days touring ins and outs of these properties, and they're probably blisters on their feet, and they're sick of us because they're wearing suits and ties and button-up shirts, for 4 days. There's some of them are thinking like, hey, I could see myself here. And hey, I'm a I'm an accounting major, and I could see myself in database marketing or somewhere in finance, or hey, as you mentioned, I'm an aviation guy, and I could see maybe I could get hired as a private pilot for this company and to bring their players in. And we toured yesterday our property downtown Cleveland, and some folks that we worked closely with over the years were gracious enough to give us some time. And again, the time spent, and it was a little more unique than our Vegas trip, where we have a general manager that's sitting down speaking to a class for not just a couple minutes and bouncing, but she was there from start to finish of the trip, and for the visit, and was engaged throughout the whole tour. And not only the dedication of time, but the wealth of knowledge that they were able to share from their experience to what they do on a day to day, to the thoughts and the ins and outs of what go into making these decisions, and why, and the traffic flow, and obviously the unique experience of a downtown casino that's floor to floor, a multi-level casino, which is very unique in itself in the industry. Helping give some perspective on what they have to go through, I guess, that doesn't get thought of. And downtown was awesome yesterday, and shout out to Angela and Scott who put on a great show, and Matt and Adam and Linda who graced us with their presence. We're able to kind of give the students a little bit something closer to home here in Ohio. That was a great way to end our semester for a class with a local, highly frequent property that does a great amount of volume on a daily and weekly basis that compares in itself to the Vegas properties.
It's good to see both perspectives. You gotta the differences between a destination and a local market are vast. So being able to see a little bit of that difference and understand, if I'm interested in getting into gaming, do I want to get into gaming in the Midwest? Do I want to get into gaming in Nevada? Do I want to get into gaming on cruise ships overseas? There's no limit to anymore, frankly, as long as you're not trying to live, in the middle of Texas. There's nowhere that you're not going to be able to find, an opportunity or at least uh, a little bit of gaming where if you're able to get your feet wet and explore the opportunities, you can go anywhere you want, eventually.
Here's to that. Other than that, I don't got any fun stories from the break. We got you mentioned sports management. We're currently kind of integrating into the business college over at Kent State. And again, this isn't a Kent State podcast, but I love the college over there, and they do amazing things, and they're continuing to do amazing things. And so we're integrating the hospitality program into the business college, and we're soon going to be working with a lot of people, and some of my students are in the sports management admin major, and they're running the NFL draft coming this week. You know, what 100 miles down the road in Pittsburgh, and so I was invited actually to go to the draft, and that'd be back-to-back years because I was there for the Packers last year. I went back to Green Bay to go see what the hype was about with the draft, and it was a great experience. I remember they shut the gates of Titletown at about like 7 p.m. The draft wasn't even done yet, and they shut the gates. Nobody else could come in because we're at capacity. Been in the Midwest quite a few years over the past few with Cleveland and Detroit and Green Bay and now Pittsburgh. And so, that's great to see. And, but yeah, that sports management major, or program over there. A lot of our students kind of cross between the two, and they're heading over there on Thursday for the draft. So, shout out to them, and I can't wait. Go sports. Shout out to Angel.
Go sports. Great Lakes is a great place to be right now, man. I think the forecast for areas, from Wisconsin all the way around to New York is it's a much more attractive place to live. Maybe not this week. I saw your weather report, but then a lot of these places where they're pricing out the younger folks, and that's what it takes for growth, is to get the younger folks to move over. So as long as Cleveland and cities like it keep making themselves attractive to the younger talent, ensuring the jobs are there, ensuring the culture is there, it's gonna be a whole different story. We'll be talking about it like we talked about the Palms. We'll say that Cleveland was the Palms of the Midwest.
That's it.
In 20 years.
I was just talking to a customer today, actually, and my mother's always, talking about that, their future, 15, 20-year kind of plans of the city. And with the Great Lakes, being one of the natural, sources of water across the country, and the future, kind of expecting that you can't live in, Texas and Arizona and all these everybody's going to be migrating up to the Great Lakes in the future, that you're not going to be able to buy the property around here. Everybody's going to be, this is going to be the New York of the Midwest, soon
They
enough.
don't get some snowpack up in Colorado, then Phoenix is going to be moving here soon, because it is not a great situation if you follow the ecology of the Colorado River and how that's been shaping up for the last 5-10 years. Tough times out there.
Ever tell you the time I stood on the Hoover Dam?
No, did you get any damn bait?
No, it was my golden birthday though, and I almost didn't make it past it. I was reading the signs that
Sure,
said,
you can say that about every birthday.
Do not sit here. It's probably my 2000, let me think, 13 birthday, when in November, when someone was, getting in trouble. Let's bring it all back to the beginning of the show.
Woo.
I wasn't around.
It wasn't me.
Appreciate you.
Back at you.
Thanks,
So
Shaggy.
next, join us, folks, for more of this, I guess. Things like this in season 2 of Raising Spirits. Mildly interesting stories from Nate's travels, and a lot of nodding on my end. So I hope you enjoy this, folks. We're happy to be back. It's been a long hiatus, but I think we got some great stuff planned for our future episodes, which will be as expedient as Nate is, which is not saying a whole lot, but I think we'll get there. Here's to you. We'll see you next time, everybody. Raising Spirits is a new standard podcast hosted by Will Hockney and Nate Geeson, produced by the one and only Ashley Kuba. Shout out to her. Our theme music is by a young gentleman whose name I don't recall, because we haven't done this podcast in quite some time.
Mr. McLaughlin.
There you are. Shout out to Angel Flowers, our musical director. Check us out on YouTube. That is our main place, but you can also catch us anywhere you catch your favorite podcasts, of which I am sure we are amongst them. We'll talk to you soon, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram and now LinkedIn.
Hit the fucking like button.
Hit the fucking like button. We'll see you next time.